Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shannon Derejo from Creamer Media. Welcome to our webinar, where our panel of speakers will showcase innovation in mining and mining services. Our webinar today is sponsored by ABB, AECI Mining, Astron Energy, and Epiroc. We thank them for their support in making this event possible. Before we begin, please be aware that we've enabled the Q&A function, so please post any questions into the Q&A. You'll find this on the panel at the bottom of your screen. Our panelists may not be able to answer all of your questions during today's hour-long webinar, but we will read through all of them. We have also enabled the chat facility, so you can post your comments in the chat. You'll also find this at the bottom of your screen. Please do not, however, post any questions in there, as we may miss them. You can post your questions into the Q&A. Please be aware that we are recording this webinar and we'll be sending it to you when it's available. We're also streaming the webinar live on YouTube, and we'll share the link in the chat when it's available. Today's webinar will be facilitated by Eric Bruggeman, the CEO of the South African Capital Equipment Export Council. He's a mechanical engineer with a wealth of experience and has worked for the African Development Bank and the World Bank on the economics of machinery and equipment. He's passionate about South Africa and its potential. Eric will facilitate the discussion with our panel, which consists of Lehlotlo Nolo Moloi, the CEO of the Mining Equipment Manufacturers of South Africa, or MEMSA, Thomas Holtz, the Group CEO of Multitech Group of Companies, Vikesh Chiba, Business Line Manager for Digital Solutions at Epiroc, and Kevin O'Neill, Technical Director at Samira Trace. I'll hand over now to Eric Bruggeman to start the discussion. Over to you, Eric.
Thanks, Sharon, and good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We also have today, as I've seen before earlier on, some 26 countries around the world joining us today on this webinar, where we'll be talking about the innovation and showcasing our innovation in the mining and the industry that supplies all the mines around the globe. The aim of today is that our panelists share their experience, and we've got a wealth of experience sitting on our panelists. And hopefully at the end of the day, for all the people locally and internationally, you will be inspired to see that the world has got a lot of difficulties. South Africa is not on its own when it comes to difficulties and difficult times. You just need to put on the television and you can see the world is in a bit of a mess. And that just equals a playing field for all. So we're not here today to moan or to groan or to talk negative about any country or any government. And we're here to explain to people that when you see innovation, you know you're going forward. And all companies around the world that are successful, and many of the companies that are here today that are on the panel, have won international and local awards for exporting and for innovation. And they know what innovation is. And innovation, you can talk about Henry Ford or some of these people around the world that started big innovations. But most of the innovation comes from ordinary people like you and I that come up with a good idea. And sometimes you have a look and say, wow, why didn't I think of this idea? And they are just absolutely perfect examples of innovation. I'll just start off by just telling you about SACEC. SACEC is the South African Capital Equipment Export Council. It's been going for 23 years, and it's a public-private partnership that we have with the Department of Trade and Industry and ourselves. There are 17 export associations in South Africa, and we export in the region of 178 billion rands worth of mining equipment, machinery and equipment, which relates to approximately $7 billion per year. At SACEC, we also have partners, and we cannot do what we do in the mining industry without partners. And we have partners like MEMSA, who you will hear from just now, Sampec, Vamcosa, Manufacturing Circle, and we all work closely together. And we have to work closely together because to take on the challenges of Africa or the world, or to export around the world and to showcase our initiatives, it is quite a task. And I believe that we in South Africa are very successful at this task and doing this task. I also just quickly want to mention, and especially for our overseas visitors on today, that in September 2024 in South Africa, we've got our Electromining Africa exhibition. It's most probably the second biggest exhibition in the mining industry, and all the people that you'll hear about today will be there. Creamer Media, who put up this webinar, will be there, and it will be nice for you to visit South Africa. There's over 850 exhibits exhibiting at this exhibition, together with a local manufacturing expo. And they also have approximately 33,000 visitors walking through the exhibition during the week. So it is really where we can showcase whatever we do in South Africa. And just to welcome everybody, and we're going to start asking, I'm going to ask each panelist 3 questions, and they're going to talk about the innovations and the great stuff that they do. And hopefully at the end, we will all be inspired by what they say and what they do. And you can see that industry continues no matter what the difficulties are. And the first person I'm going to be asking a question to is Leholonono from Moloi, from the Mining Equipment Manufacturers of South Africa, called MEMSA. And he is the CEO of the Mining Equipment Manufacturers of South Africa, a cluster of more than 60 local original equipment manufacturers and service providers. He has over 25 years experience in process metallurgy and executive management at major mining firms. So a gentleman with a wealth of experience. And my first question is going to go, and I have to ask, what does or how does South Africa's mining technology know-how compare globally? Thank you, if I can ask you that.
Yeah, thank you, Eric, and good afternoon, colleagues, South African time. And it's an honor and a privilege to be part of this panelist and part of this very exciting webinar. Yes, and I think, based on your question, one's got to also maybe just take a step back and say, where does South Africa innovation and technology come from? I mean, we've got in excess of 100 years of mining experience and having a specialty also in the hard rock, specialized low profile seams, both in the hard rock and soft rock. And I think that kind of challenges that we've seen over the years in the mining industry has led to the innovation that we are seeing in the country. And that level of innovation is driven nonetheless by South Africans who understand the challenges of the mining industry and the challenges of the industry itself. But over and above that, one of the key things that have driven that is improvement on safety, not just production. And that speaks for themselves if one looks at how the numbers have declined in terms of fatalities in the mining industry to where we are. And that could have never happened without the collaboration between all the key stakeholders, which is the Mine Health and Safety Council, the DMRE, and the Minerals Council, and all the manufacturers that play a big role within the mining sector. So, and I think that part of collaboration in those key aspect areas where it's needed, especially when speak to safety, is very important. And I think that speaks to also the level of innovation that we've seen happening in South Africa, specifically around the level 9 collision policy that has came out from the DMRE, and how South African companies have risen to face that challenge, obviously in collaboration with the mines. And I think it's very important to just say that, pound for pound, South Africa has proven that we know mining, and pound for pound, we can even see from the numbers you've mentioned in terms of exports, both continentally and into the world, that has grown. And I think some of the logistics that we've seen in terms of the challenges we're seeing in the procurement space have led to those opportunities happening and also exposing South Africa as a key manufacturer within the mining supply chain. I hope I've answered your question, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and just to add on it, it's good to see that there are so many people, and the health and safety is one of the important factors in mining. And I think South Africa has got an incredible, fantastic record, and we are absolutely leaders in all of this that we do. Thank you so much. My next question will go to Thomas Holtz and from Multitech. And Thomas Holtz has a BSc Mechanical Engineering as well as a postgraduate diploma in Industrial Engineering. His career with Multipec started in 1996. We now serves as the CEO. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we're all aging on this. And so we do have a wealth of experience. But my question to Thomas is, Multitech is addressing current challenges, and I know Multitech has won many awards locally and internationally. And the question is, the mining companies and what they do is through your mineral processing. What are the challenges being faced at the moment, Thomas, that your company faces, and the innovations that you have to do to keep the mine's processing equipment alive and well? Thomas.
Thanks, Eric. I'm in denial. I'm definitely not aging. So I think, yeah, I'll say my gray hair gives it away, but unfortunately can't run away from that. Thanks for the intro, Eric. Yeah, from Multitech's point of view, we're a proudly South African company, manufacturing equipment here, predominantly in Gauteng, exporting to many destinations. And we pride ourselves with having fairly direct access to mine sites and to mineral processing applications. So we have a fairly wide infrastructure spread throughout Africa in particular, but even in South America, Australasia, across into some of the mining applications up north in the Middle East, which is obviously very contentious at the moment, and all the way up through to Sweden and even into Russia, at least in the past. So our experience is very much related to applications, understanding the application. If there's a requirement to do dry screening, which in dry countries, water is a problem, we offer a dry screening product, which is quite different to a wet screening product. So we do a lot of, one of our core businesses is screening, not screening machines, screening media, and we're probably one of the most sophisticated suppliers of screening media, whether it's made from stainless steel or some other form of special steel, polyurethane, rubber, you get it, you name it. I mean, we probably have 10,000 plus variations on the topic. We will supply that into the industry, and we say it's fit for purpose. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Every mine site has its uniqueness, and we do develop a customized solution to those applications. So very much following the customer and satisfying the needs that they have. We also do focus some of our capital equipment to assist with the water story, where mining companies can't need to reprocess their water because they don't also have enough water, but they don't have slab stamp licenses. We offer filter presses and centrifuges in that arena. So we're developing, obviously, to adapt into an environment depending on the client's needs and the applications. More and more remote areas on the planet are providing us the minerals that we require, and we need to move into those areas. We obviously know in Africa, West Africa for gold, Central Africa for copper. We're in those places, and we develop as we see fit. I think I can talk a little bit more, but I'll maybe leave that for a later question, Eric. But yeah, we're a proud supplier of South African-made product into most mining destinations in the world.
Just a quick question before I let you go on this question. What is the amount of R&D that Multitech tackles on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, especially when the challenges are coming from the mines, with whether it's in South Africa or in Africa or anywhere else, Thomas?
Yeah, I'd love to give you a percentage on revenue. I can't because I'm embarrassed. It's not enough. We do have extensive R&D facilities. We do also do a lot of testing of material that we get from the mine sites. We have a quite an expansive facility just around the corner here, where we can bring samples of customers the minerals that they want to separate, because we also offer guarantees on the product. So we need to be able to test it and then offer that guarantee. We do, you know, on R&D for us, it's a no-brainer. The question is, what's your appetite? I mean, I can tell you we're not a software company, so we're not spending 4% of our revenue. We wouldn't survive as a business in that space, but it's significantly less, but quite substantial. If you don't do that investment, you're going to drop behind. There's no question that is absolutely essential for the survival of your business. So we also differentiate between product development, which is refining the product offering into a particular application, as opposed to pure R&D, where we just literally doing the blue sky stuff, testing new ideas, new products, and we do that as well, and we do that at different locations. We have a newly established factory in China, and they've made us some amazing equipment, but based on the capabilities that they have in that factory. So yeah, we depending on the area we're in Chile, for instance, we've specialized on sampling equipment, and we've got some class-leading sampling equipment coming out of our Chilean operations. So yeah, I could go on, but I think that's it for now, Eric.
Thank you, Thomas. Much appreciated. Our next panelist is Vicky Chiba, and he has a diverse background in engineering projects and business management, specializing in automation and digital solutions for the mining industry. Vicky currently serves as a business line manager and automation product manager. So the question to you, Vicky, is what are some of the latest technology advancements in mining equipment and support services, especially regarding drilling and rock excavations? Vikesh?
Thanks very much, Eric. And good afternoon, good morning to all the participants. It's truly a pleasure and an honor to participate in the webinar this afternoon. So maybe I'll start off with a bit of context. Epiroc has traditionally been a yellow machine manufacturer, manufacturing company, but we've made several strategic acquisitions in the last few years within the mining technology space. So we are bolstering our technology capabilities. The acquisitions has resulted in our digital and automation portfolio being quite broad. If I think about the products ranging from remote and autonomously controlled machines, we have real-time situational awareness tools. We have telematics platforms that allow for machine health and productivity monitoring and reporting. We also offer collision prevention systems, commonly known as or termed as CAS in the mining space, but we're motivating for the transition from CAS to CPS. So we're all talking the same thing. So that's in line with the definitions in terms of the South African regulations. And we also have advanced software packages for mine design, planning, and short interval control. It's worth noting that all of these systems are fully agnostic that we offer from Epiroc. So you can basically install these solutions on any piece of equipment, whether it's Epiroc or not, which is something that we're quite proud of and gets us excited. And, all of these products are in continuous development. But at the moment, there's a large amount of focus around the integration of these various platforms. So essentially, we're driving towards having a single solution with different technology plugins, depending on what our customers need, whether it's productivity, efficiency, or safety improvements. But I guess, Eric, to answer your question in terms of some of the latest developments we've been working on, we recently launched our real-time location tracking system for surface mining applications. It's called Blast Support. It's essentially a 3D visualization of people's location within the mine site to ensure that no person is in the danger zone during blasting. I mean, the system can also track assets apart from people, whether fixed or moving assets. And it's really cool in the sense that you have a 3D map that you can visually see where all the people and assets are. And this surface platform has been built on our tried and tested real-time location system, which has been used in underground applications in South Africa. We currently have 4 sites in South Africa where we're using the underground real-time situation tool. There's also been some significant leaps in terms of machine automation. We recently launched our interoperable remote and autonomous operation platform for surface drills. So essentially, an operator is able to control a range of autonomous platform and crawler drills from a common operating platform. So that's quite a big step. We call the system CAP, or Common Automation Platform, and we think that's quite a game changer in the surface drilling space. In the underground automation space, we have successfully completed testing and demonstrated fully autonomous material handling. So that's from face to the loading point. I think something that's also got us quite excited is in the CPS or CAS in the collision prevention space. We've launched Epiroc's Titan CXD system to the market, which has been designed and developed in South Africa. It's also primarily assembled in South Africa by a company called Murnock Electronic, which we acquired in 2022. And while CPS or CAS is not new in South Africa, this product is quite exciting in the sense that it combines various sensor technologies, including GPS, low frequency, radio frequency, time of flight, and AI cameras, depending on the specific underground or surface operating conditions. And that combination significantly increases the likelihood of the CPS system detecting a person or vehicle. We obviously also working closely with the University of Pretoria around that. So there's a lot happening in this space, and I think that the developments will continue.
Thank you very much. And it sounds interesting, and it's, with all the different panelists, and we're now going to go to Kevin O'Neill from CIMERA Trace, and Kevin O'Neill is considered the father of radio frequency identification in South Africa. He's led the RFID, which is Radio Frequency Identification Institute, over the last 30 years, and has developed solutions for a wide range of industries and leading companies. And Kevin, my question to you is, what inspired the development of your blast-resistant tracer, and what roles does the technology play in the mining process? Kevin?
Okay, very good question. Yeah. Well, just a quick background. We were always, since about 1988, a control and instrumentation process automation company, and measuring every sort of product or process that you'd imagine. And in about 1998, we needed a technology that we could read non-line of sight on some certain products that you cannot read. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. And it was actually in the paint ovens in the automotive industry. So we brought in this radio frequency identification technology, which is basically a microchip that works on radio waves to identify non-line of sight technology. And that was brought in for one of the common manufacturers in the country for their system. And in 2001, we were approached by the mining industry, one of the large mining groups, which was then Kumba Resources, to see if we can come up with this technology to track an ore body from A to B, because we were in track and trace systems, traceability, and real-time information on the traceability of a product. So we went into we were almost based on their R&D to develop this product for them. So we thought, well, very simple. We took on the project, and not knowing too much about the material handling and ore bodies and that type of stuff, not as simple as just throwing an RFID tag at point A and measure it at point B, because then you're just measuring the tag. So we went through a lot of research and development with all the mining groups over the next 5 years, developing the ore tracer, that we could put this tracer into the ore and it must remain and have the same characteristics as the ore. Mainly shape, size, SG, behavior, same characteristics. So that took quite a couple of years to get that, just the product right. So you don't get segregation in the ore and that, and you track the ore body with this product. And then obviously once we'd achieved what we were set out to be, the guys, and obviously one of them was how we could distribute these tracers, what volumes would you put per ton, do you want to do tracking or do you want to do management? So all those things were trialed and run over the years with most of the guys. And then once that was finally finalized, obviously the milestone became, can we put them within the blast so we don't have to seed them afterwards? So it'd be with the ore body right from the blast. And what's the thing? So it took about another 5 years, a lot of hard work together with CSR and some of the explosives companies in the country. And we tried and tested it out till we got the product right. It could survive the blast. And then obviously to try and see, well, what percentage of them lasted the blast. Yeah, and then take them through the plant. Can it survive the crushing, the cyclones, etc.? Go through the plant and go out for all transfer to the stockpile management, right to customer. So for stockpile mapping, retention times in the plant and things. So we developed the software around it, that it could be a real-time locating software of any of your ore body to be used for grade control management. You know? We don't do the grade control management, we provide the tool to identify the ore. So after, I'd say, almost 10 years of testing and trials with, I'd say, every mining group in the country, we had the different underground to surface, different platinum, mainly iron ore and coal. We did our trials with Exxaro and the Kumba iron ore. And yeah, that was how the product was. In fact, it wasn't the idea we popped up with. It was the industry, the mining industry, that approached us and taught us a lot of what the requirements were. And I've been in the process control industry since I started the business in '89 and started working with control and automation in '78 already. So it was a big challenge for us. And since then, we've just gone on and on, continuously improving the product.
Thank you. And it's interesting to see. And if you have a look at so far, we've now had every one of our panelists say something in the mining industry, and it's amazing what actually goes on and the designs and what actually happens. And people talk mining is a short word, but if you see the complications and the amount of technology that goes into a single mine, it is absolutely mind-blowing. Thank you for that, Kevin, and we'll come back to you now. I'm going back to Lehonolo for a second question, and the question I'm asking is, how is local mining technology responding to the energy, transport and water crisis? And the second part to that question, have you found that there's government support and industry collaboration in taking place to help build the sector?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. And I think that the answer to your question is resilient, and I think the resilience of the South African manufacturers in terms of with all the challenges that we're having, from electricity to the logistics part of it, and we've seen the delays at the ports and stuff like that. But I think, all in all, and given also the challenges that we're seeing with the commodity prices, especially coal and the PGMs, really, it's been tough for a lot of manufacturers to be able to sustain the businesses. But I think that level of creativity that exists within South African manufacturers have given them that flexibility that us as an industry cluster, we've never lost one member during all this time where there's been challenges in the industry. In actual fact, we've grown from I think when the time I joined MEMS about 3 years ago, from 35 to about 70 members to date. And that just goes to show that the industry is quite optimistic about the South African mining industry. And I think also the advent of the Africa Free Trade Area is quite exciting for the local manufacturers to look at the opportunities that the continent presents itself. So yeah, the South African manufacturers have been quite resilient with all the challenges faced. And I think one thing's one's got to mention is we've had very strong engagements from a provincial level, because most of our members are based in Gauteng province in South Africa, and the engagement around how best to work around the issues of electricity. We have engagements with, for instance, Ekurhuleni municipality, where we're looking at different options from, load curtailment. Thomas and I participate in a committee that speaks to industry, between industry and a local government, around how best you can support the industry, looking at flexibility between the municipalities and Eskom. And again, around issues of logistics, the collaborative effort between our members to say how best can we find a common supplier, a common service provider, that we can give them the volumes to be able to assist us to make sure that whatever products they need to get out of South Africa and also in from the supply chain is fast-tracked. So yeah, the industry has been resilient. But yes, we've taken those challenges to the chin, and that hasn't come easy, because some of those costs you cannot transfer them to your client. You've got to somehow find a way to cushion that and hope that, through all this process, with everything happening, you don't go under, you survive. But I have to say, we've never lost a member who's gone under. Instead, we've grown as an industry, and that shows the positiveness that we have in terms of the South African mining industry. Now it's going to turn around, and obviously the continent. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thanks. And I think if you have a look at it, and earlier I mentioned the export numbers that are growing, and there's a lot of people with a lot of negativity around. But if you have a look at business, and you have a look at the innovation in business, and the ways people are working together, I mean, in South Africa, as I said earlier, every organization that you can think of in the industrial, technical space, mining space, is working together to help industry to strive and be successful. And I think that's where we are. Thanks so much for that. And my next question to Thomas is, Thomas, are there any success stories that you could share with us from a Multitech solution that have considerable impact on the profitability and sustainability of some of the mining operations? And as far as you're concerned, the South African mining companies continue to invest in new mining technology and mining service. And why is that important? Thomas?
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, let's just start off with this word resilient. Sometimes I think us South Africans are getting a bit tired of being resilient. It's a challenge. We deal with the deindustrialization as a factor, which is a phenomenon. I think one of the questions I saw earlier was around, is this manufacturing industry growing? I think this manufacturing industry is struggling. So it's a challenge. You have to have a mindset of taking on the challenges, putting in the power required, and being capable of dealing with the load shedding, the load curtailment, and sometimes many other factors that we have to deal with. That notwithstanding, I have to say at Multitech, we've taken the bull by the horns, and I think we've taken the challenge on. And we do feel that we've got a great story to tell. Just as an example, in US dollar terms, Multitech has grown since the 1994. We talk about a transition to date, 2024, 10 times in US dollars in revenue, and substantial portion of that was export related. So we do feel we've got something to offer. We do feel if you have the mindset of a world-class business with people that own that mindset, rather than think that in the southern part of Africa here, we don't have the skills, and we're not capable, and we have to overcome all these challenges, well, then you're not going to make it. You have to put your head down. But just to your question, Eric, yeah, I mean, we've had a number of innovations which I can talk to. I think depending on this audience, some of it is very specific. For instance, a quick and easy one is we've developed a UX7 spiral, which is used to beneficiate chrome. And in this particular instance, this particular spiral has been able to recover much more efficiently this fraction below 75 microns, if that means anything to anybody. That fraction was lost in the past, but it's now recovered. So it allows that operation to recover a larger portion of its mineral. In the past, that wasn't the case. Eric, you'll know, and Lekhlo, we won the award on the pulping chute, which replaces a scrubber. So we take the scrubber runs. It needs a motor. It needs some moving equipment. It saves energy. There's a lot of wear on it, whereas the pulping chute's made out of ceramics. It's a static item, serves the same purpose, typically used in the mining industry. And that has been one of our innovations. I'm just mindful of time, but I think one of the last one is we've developed the integrated liner, which we call the Makulu liner, which in the mill lining applications has partly replaced some of the steel liners. And it's a composite rubber steel. It's quicker to install because it's lighter. It's because it's integrated. You have less parts to install, so there's less of a shutdown required. And in some instances, we've proven in the copper belt that we can get a higher throughput with that liner in the mill. So yeah, we've done a fair amount of development, and obviously to the benefit of our clients.
Oh, thanks, Thomas. And I know that you've won many, many awards, and we congratulate you guys on this, because obviously they don't come easy, and there's a lot of work that goes behind that. If I can now go back to Vikesh and just ask the question, to what level has the digitization and even artificial intelligence begun to impact on South Africa mining operations? And how does Epiroc ensure that the technology advancement you offer are fit for purpose? Vikesh,
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I think, digitization specifically has gained huge momentum over the last decade. And it's had a significant impact on the local mining sector. I think mines that are not digitizing the information are at a serious disadvantage. So if you think about the traditional manual paper-based methods of the past, these were typically prone to human error, loss of information, and slow processes to consolidate the data. But if you think about digitization, where collection, storage, conveying of the data is happening at a blink of an eye, much faster, much more accurate, it's a base requirement. And I think, in our space, we drive data and digitization essentially for more effective management decisions. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. So we leverage technologies such as sensors and controllers linked to IoT devices, information gathered through tablets. We use various types of tags, RFID technologies, and connectivity through Wi-Fi and LTE to collect and transfer the data to server-based applications. Once it's collected and stored, there's different software packages available in the market, but we actually can offer packages that can combine data from different sources, consolidation for mine design, for planning, and for scheduling purposes. The technology we have, the sorts of information, if you think about planning and scheduling, can be sent to machines and operators in near real time. So the digitization has become very, very streamlined, and it's something that we even use internally within Epiroc quite effectively. From an AI perspective, I feel we're really only scratching the surface of what is possible in South Africa. And there's huge opportunity for us to leverage AI and artificial intelligence to have a greater impact. If I think about our solutions, we have as mentioned a bit earlier, we have a broad range of autonomous solutions for drilling, loading, and haulage, both in underground and surface operations. These solutions essentially allow machines to be operated and controlled through very complex AI algorithms, and are able to communicate and coordinate with each other in a very orchestrated way to get the maximum possible utilization from the machines. Now, we do have a handful of sites in South Africa that are running autonomous surface drills, but there's limited applications in, I think, both the surface haulage space and the underground mining space. And I think that that is because there's still some work to do in terms of the operational maturity that's required before we can take that next step to fully autonomous systems. However, there are areas where AI is being used quite routinely. If I think about in terms of software, for example, our design, planning, and scheduling platforms basically use algorithms to simulate mining operations and predict outcomes based on different scenarios and operational constraints. We can talk about design of mining layouts, planning the sequence of extraction, optimizing the transport of materials. So there's a lot happening in the software space. But if I think about what's happening in terms of AI related hardware, AI cameras, for example, are being used more and more in mining. And I guess an example is the AI camera that we fit onto our CAS or CPS system, which is able to detect people and assets that don't necessarily have a tag or any form of detection device on them. And that just adds an extra layer of safety.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. And we'll get back to you just now again. Thanks. If I can go to Kevin for the last questions here as well. In the RFID, Kevin, where have you trialed this technology and what results have been achieved? And secondly, what innovations such as yours critical to ensure sustainability in the South African mining industry and the mining industry worldwide? Kevin, I might call you.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. Yeah, I think we did predominantly our trials started right at the beginning with in Rosh Pinah mine, with a small mine that we could control the environment and to track the ore body. So with the tracking of the ore, there's a lot of components. So we take it from pit to plant or from underground to plant. And then we moved on to the bigger mines where we did from the blasts to the plant at Sishen mines, mostly through iron ore, all the iron ore mines, coal with Exxaro, Grootegeluk. We trialed it with the Richards Bay Coal Terminal for the stockpile management and blending beds. So, and the whole Anglo Platinum group was there tonight. So we took different components of the mining world and trialed it just with one sort of mining group, not doing the same trials over and over. And one of the main things being in the pit was to identify your grade and your ore and your waste to prevent ore to waste, waste to ore, which is the biggest thing. And then in the plant, obviously, the plant efficiencies of a plant and to test the survivabilities of the traces through crushers and etc., what the survival rates would be. So every little component we'd measure out. The diamond industry, we did a lot with Letseng diamonds in Lesotho. Namdeb on the seabeds, we followed traces in the seabeds with Namdeb and Debmarine. So we've done extensive testing through almost every part of the industry, Harmony Gold, from underground to surface. So yeah, and mainly to track and trace, planned versus action. Are you getting what you actually predicted? So we'd get blast plans and all grades and that and put it into our system. What we also did was mining is very silo. You got your sampling geology, you got your blasting, you got your hauling, you got your plant, then you got your ore transfer, stockpile management, etc. It was all silo. So we had to develop a software platform that could integrate to each one of these and make it our own real-time platform so that you could track it right through each one without having to go to each silo and get the information. So we have the digital ID, non-erasable ID on the ore tracer that travels with your ore body the whole time. So we're taking control of it. And as I said, I think the main thing is what is planned. So we get the plan and we can measure to what's actually coming into the plant, what you're actually hauling. And I think the main big improvement is the quality control and grade control, management of your ore, and knowing what you're hauling, and having it verified at a tip. What grade is coming in? What ore is coming in? Is it what's planned? The blast movement that we get in a block is quite amazing. How on some blocks we got up to 15 meters of movement in a blast block. So to predict on the demarcation lines, people what they think they're hauling, they're actually not. So the ore tracers managed to help identify this. And that's a big improvement in the quality of your grade going out and variation. So we basically trialed with every different mining industry, and from platinum, chrome, iron ore, coal, Eskom power stations. We did the coal retention times to surge bins, the different grade control of the ores coming in from the mines that feed it. So yeah, I don't think there's a place we haven't trialed over the last, and that's all taken. It's a 20-year challenge we've had, almost just on 20 years now.
Again,
smoothly for the last 5 years. Yeah.
As I've said earlier, Kevin, it's absolutely amazing to see the technologies and the strides forwards that we go into. We've now got a whole lot of questions from our viewers. I think the easiest is I'm going to read out a question, and if our panelists will raise their hand to see who wants to answer that particular question that we have got. And the one question is, and the first question that came up earlier, so it says, how does the mining industry bridge the language gap between operator and senior management? And is Whanaga law still effective? Is there anybody that wants to answer this? I know that the mines are, Whanaga law is a language, and I don't think it will ever change in the South African content. Is there any other?
Eric, maybe if I can just come in on that one. One's got to be able to acknowledge that our government at the national level has played a big role in terms of participation in the mining industry. And this was done through the Mandela Mining Precinct, which is one of the most successful triple Ps between the Department of Science and Innovation and the Minerals Council of South Africa. And one of the programs that the Mandela Mining Precinct is running is called SETCAP, which is a successful application of technology centered around people. And one of the things that when this launch of the different projects that the Mandela Mining Precinct did and ran is that they invited the unions, different unions, from NUMSA to NUM and all the other unions to be part of the journey of the Mandela Mining Precinct, but also to say whatever technology that's going to be introduced into the mining industry is going to be communicated. And some of the technology speaks to the language barriers, and hence that's why the issues of ABET that have been applied in the past to say, train your people, at least they can be language competent. And I think there's been quite a huge success if one looks at the ABET training that's been done at the mines. But then also comes to the issue of exposure to technology and how technology then influences the decision making at the mines. And that's why the likes of the SETCAP programs are quite relevant and are endorsed by most of the mining unions and key stakeholders within the mining industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the answer there. I'd like to go to the next question. And is there any growth in the local manufacturing sector? Is private business and government assisting SMMEs in this regard? Is any of our panelists prepared to answer that question? Thomas?
I'll make a comment. Unfortunately, I think the SMME sector is always one struggling in this country. We've had a traditional focus around big business, and I think you get to a certain threshold and you can flourish, but small business struggles. So yeah, it's that regulatory environment that is extremely difficult to get into. I think the mining companies are trying very hard. This whole initiative of the Enterprise Development Initiative. We as a company, obviously, to subscribe to the scorecard, we put an effort in developing SMMEs as suppliers to us. But there's only so much that we can do, and then we do see that the mines themselves train up and empower their suppliers within the communities. They have that pressure daily to deal with. So they're working in that space. I think I can't give any credit to anybody. I think the regulatory environment makes it quite harsh for small businesses. I have personally a couple of small businesses that I'm invested in, and if you don't have the expertise and you don't have the skills at how to negotiate, it's a struggle to start a small business and successfully get off into a sort of critical mass unless you have a big brother that feeds you or somebody that holds your hand. So I think the enterprise development aspect of the scorecard is very useful, and I'm pretty sure that it's helped many companies as we've helped suppliers to us.
Okay, great, thanks, Thomas. Just the last question as well, and somebody asked, as a geologist, my prediction is that the batteries will be more expensive than the EV shell in a century based or on current global base metal reserves. is it regarded as a counterproductive for mining companies to invest in recycling technologies? Is there anybody that would comment? Okay,
It's our
thank-
game. It's
Kevin?
our game, Eric. It's our game. I mean, whether we call it urban mining, you know, you take a source which is called waste stream from some sort of a waste plant, you recycle it. So we're starting to get more and more inquiries into that space. But you know, South Africa or Africa particularly, we're still pretty good at throwing stuff in a pit. The Europeans are far more advanced as far as that's concerned. But it'll come. The recycling aspect and the reuse will become. It just takes time. And you know, whether you're crushing it or using a magnetic separator or any form of physical or chemical separation, the recycling companies use very similar technologies.
Thanks, Thomas. Kevin, you also wanted to comment on some of this? Kevin?
No, I was just.
Yeah, Eric, if I may come in here.
Yes, please. Or not all of
Yes, I think it's
Oh,
also
sorry.
important to highlight that you know, there has been again strides done by South African companies looking at obviously, you know, addressing the elephant in the room, which is the ESG and some of the old dumps that we have around Gauteng and all the mining towns. And you know, if one was to be able to attend our upcoming Mineshift conference, where we'll be showcasing some of these technologies that speaks to you know, issues of rehabilitation, issues of recycling, and one will appreciate that there is a lot of work that, from a South African perspective, that companies have really put in the technologies out there that are looking at reprocessing some of the dumps. And it's currently happening as we speak, from coal to manganese to iron ore. And yes, you know, it's a manner of our business. And I think with the big word of ESG being the big ticket to tick when you do business these days. And I think our manufacturers have shown that we are there to support the industry from that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've got just over 9 minutes left. So while I've got you on roll, can you come up with closing remarks and some inspiration that will give the audience? I see we've still got 130 odd people listening in. The way forward, the way you see it forward, and what's going to happen. I mean, you know, it's definitely not doom and gloom. So please, can you give us some closing remarks from your side?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I think one of the key things is one's got to be able to appreciate, you know, that we're playing in the global space as manufacturers in South Africa. But I think the Africa Free Trade Area presents new opportunities for not just South African manufacturers, but manufacturers in the continent. But I think the key thing here is collaboration. But from collaboration, also we've got to look at the issue of innovation. And innovation, that's where we are able to industrialize as a country and as a continent. But to be able to innovate, there has to be funds available to support research and development. And I have to say, you know, really for the longest of time, there's been a bit of a discourse between our manufacturers and some of the research institutions, which I think because now they're coming closer to the likes of CSIR, University of Pretoria, Wits University, UJ, and industry started to embrace these research institutions to get solutions for mining opportunities and also mining challenges. So I think the more we engage at the regional and continental level on how best to innovate for not just mining, but just manufacturing sector in general. And that is why, again, I say, you know, our Mineshift conference, which is now the second year running, that's happening on the 15th and 16th of May. And we've got, you know, keynote speakers like Professor Glenn Noyler from the Wits Mining Institute. And we've got, you know, Professor Kaywood that used to be at the Wits Mining Institute, you know, and all key stakeholders that are key and understand the mining industry, understand the manufacturing sector. And I think it's important that, you know, in everything that we do, we seek collaboration because that's key to survival and to growth in the continent. And as we want to industrialize this continent, you know, putting money into R&D, as Thomas has said, that they can do more, but, you know, it's not easy to allocate that money for R&D. So we need to collaborate, find those resources from a continental perspective, then to be able to industrialize the continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo Gonalolo. And congratulations to MEMS. I think you guys are doing an absolutely amazing job. And we all need to stand together and work together to promote and to get the industry, especially the mining industry, growing and growing at a good percentages of growth. Thank you so much. If I can call on Thomas, if you can come in, if you can give us your closing remarks and some inspiration for our listeners of the innovation and what's happening in the process industry.
Thanks, Eric. I'd rather than talk about something that motivates, I think I'm going to put a challenge out there. You've heard both Vikesh and Kevin talk a lot about technology, particularly around digitization. As a company, Multitech has spent a lot of money, let's put it that way, on this digitization initiative. We are a mineral processing company, that's our space, and we found it very hard to find clients that are willing to try out the sensor IoT technology and integrate it into their operating systems. Suffice to say that I think in South Africa, we haven't built in too many new plants. So the challenge of adding sort of a digital component into those plants is difficult. I think when you start with greenfields operations, it's a lot harder, easier. But the challenge is to the industry and the EPCMs and the users to, you know, we've spent a lot of money on developing the sensors to give you the data. And, you know, you hear it, data-driven decision-making. Get the data. We have the sensors. And start integrating it into your operating systems and work with, you know, unfortunately, the silo approach of everybody does their own thing. And your sensor doesn't talk to my sensor, doesn't talk to a platform that you know, that ultimately has to be collaboratively shared to start giving some meaningful information to a plant operator. So I challenge the industry and it does need to go through universities. It does need to go through maybe some of the EPCMs who integrate their SCADA and their operating systems to talk to each other and welcome the source of data. We've got the data. We don't necessarily always have access to the platforms. We do process the data on our own platforms and then give a report, but it's working in a silo. It doesn't integrate the information on the plant across various equipment providers. So challenge to the industry, we want to collaborate and it's tough because you are then talking to competitors and that's not necessarily something we're particularly good at doing.
Yeah, especially in South Africa, talking to competitors, and that's also because the pie is only so big. But Thomas, thank you very much, and I think, well, let's hope that a lot of the people that are listening out there will accept the challenge. If I may now go to Vikesh, and again, Vikesh, if you can come in, also just your closing remarks, and hopefully you have accepted the challenge that Thomas has put out there. Vikesh.
100%. I think, you know, what I'd like to close off with is we've spoken a lot about the hard topics today, but there's two soft topics that I want to just raise that is extremely important in the innovation space in the mining industry. And those two topics are people and partnerships. I think whatever we do within the industry, we have to take people into account, the people that are going to be using these innovations on a daily basis. And if we don't take the people factor into account, we're going to end up in a scenario where we have a very clever solution that delivers no value. And the second, you know, to the challenge that Thomas has raised, partnerships. I mean, I think we have to accept that in order for the mining industry in South Africa to advance, we need to be able to work together. We need to be willing to work together to come up with creative solutions that ultimately elevate the industry. So 2 points, bit of a challenge. Yeah, I'll just end it there. Thank you very much, Eric.
Well, thank you, Vikesh. And I think, you know, if I can add one aspect to that, with when you say people and partnerships, and I fully agree. And I think we need to trust one another a little bit more and form stronger partnerships. I know that we at SACIC, we could not help people export and do that kind of volume if we didn't have partnerships all over the world and partners that we can trust. And it's all business is related around people. Business is related around partnerships and trust. So thank you, Vikesh. If I can go to you now, Kevin, last but absolutely not least, can you give us your closing remarks, please, Kevin?
Yeah, I'd say to industry, I've been in the control and measurement industry, CNI, I'd say for over 40 years now, predominantly in the petrochemical and power generation industries, the AEC, chemical plants and that, and measuring flow, pressure, level, rotation, speed, all of these things have just increased by better methods, but there's no new methods really been created for those sort of industries. Whereas in the mining industry, there's technologies around now that can give you real-time ability to measure, people, processes, and assets. So the advancement in the mining industry, the technologies is a huge improvement from being able to measure what actual ore without using it on a survey plan. It's actually now real-time information with a measuring device. So basic technologies out there now that provides tools for almost every sector within the mining to measure what you couldn't measure before. And that's basically process improvement. And if you can improve a process, you improve your bottom line without doubt. And obviously a huge improvement in quality. Your quality management improves. And like Vikesh is saying, the measurement industries and people working in silos and that, and creating the platforms to be able to communicate is where it's at the moment. And I just find in the mining space, there's a lot of space for improvement with technology. A lot of things that you could not measure before, that the technologies now are available to measure. I found 20 years ago when we developed this ore tracer, the technology was way before its time. And predominantly it was resistance to change. The older guy, it's resistance to change. Now the people are growing up with technology everywhere. So we find that it's more and more easy in the digital revolution and unique identification methodologies. And it's just made things much easier. So the technologies are out there.
Thank you, Kevin. And yes, and so we come to the end of this webinar. And if I can just summarize, if you have a look what was said between Kevin, Vikesh, Thomas, and Lennon Hololo, it's absolutely amazing what is happening in our mining industries. And it's amazing the technology that South Africa has got over the 100 years or 150 years of mining and where we started. And I'm always very proud that when I travel around the world, which I do quite often, and I go and see mining companies, how many South Africans are heading up mining companies around the world and how many are heading up the technical decisions around the world. And that just goes to show that the basics, the background, the basic knowledge of mining, the mining technology does come from South Africa, whether it's deep mining or open pit mining. Somewhere along the line, if you travel around the world, South Africa is part of it. And all we can hope and wish for is that through hard work, and you can see the guys are doing incredibly good work and incredibly hard work in the technology space of mines. And if you look at the technology nowadays happening in mines, it's absolutely mind-blowing to actually see what is happening in the mines with technology. So just as a reminder to all our visitors, both locally and internationally, please do remember Electromining Africa is around the corner in September. And if you want to meet up with Kevin, Vikesh, Thomas, or Holono, please go there. You can meet their companies. You can see the technology that everybody was talking about. You can see what's happening at some mind-blowing exhibition. And all we can do is say, let's take South Africa further. Let's take SA Inc. into the future and go into Africa. And let's not forget about the Africa Free Trade Agreement and all the other free trade agreements we have got around the world. And let's invite everybody and showcase South Africa and the mining capabilities and the innovation in mining to the rest of the world. I thank you all, and I'd now like to hand over back to Shannon. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. That brings us to the end of our webinar. I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to our facilitator, Eric Bruggeman from SACEC, for enabling a frank and engaging discussion. Thank you also to our panelists, Mr. Malloy from Mining Equipment Manufacturers of South Africa, Mr. Holtz from Meltotech, Mr. Chiba from Epiroc, and Mr. O'Neill from Samira Trace. Thank you to our sponsors, ABB, AECI Mining, Astron Energy, and Epiroc for their support in making this webinar possible. And finally, thank you to the attendees for taking the time to join us for this discussion on innovation in mining and mining services. We hope you found this event engaging and informative. We appreciate your participation. The next webinar takes place on the 22nd of May at 2 p.m. and will showcase the technologies to address mine water challenges. The link to register for that event has been shared in the chat. The recording of today's webinar will be sent to you in due course. And if you have any additional questions, please be in touch. You can reach us at shannon@creamermedia.co.za. Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye.
Bye.